Imagine living in a world where your voice doesn't count. Sounds unjust, right? Well, in some ways, that's what voter suppression does. Democracy at its core is about equal representation, a platform where every voice matters. But when voter suppression tactics are at play, this balance gets disrupted. And it's not just a theory. Voter suppression is a real issue silently eroding the very foundations of democracy. Voter suppression isn't a hypothetical problem. It's happening right now, and it's more widespread than you might think. Let's take a closer look at some real-life examples of voter suppression. Let's start with restrictive voter ID laws. These laws require voters to present specific forms of identification to vote. Sounds simple, right? Not so fast. Often these laws disproportionately affect minority, low-income, and elderly voters who may not have access to the required identification. For instance, in Texas, the voter ID law accepts a handgun license as valid identification, but not a student ID. Next, we have gerrymandering. This is a practice where politicians manipulate the boundaries of voting districts to favor one party. Picture this. Instead of voters choosing their representatives, representatives are choosing their voters. An example can be found in North Carolina, where a district was drawn in such a peculiar way that it was likened to a drunken octopus. Lastly, let's talk about voter roll purges. This is when names are removed from the voting register, often under the guise of maintaining up-to-date records. However, these purges can lead to eligible voters being disenfranchised. In Georgia, for example, almost 200,000 voters were wrongly removed from the rolls in 2018, many on the basis of supposed changes of address. These tactics, while seemingly subtle, have a significant impact on elections, often determining who gets to hold power. Now that you are aware of voter suppression, the question is, what can you do about it? You're not powerless in this fight, far from it. Knowledge is your first line of defense. Stay informed about your voting rights. Know when and where to vote and what identification, if any, is required. But awareness isn't enough. If you suspect voter suppression, don't stay silent. Report it. There are various non-profit organizations such as the ACLU and the NAACP that work tirelessly to protect the sanctity of the ballot box. Reach out to them, and let's not forget, advocacy is key. Advocate for fair voting laws. Support policies that make voting accessible for everyone. Encourage your lawmakers to end practices like gerrymandering and restrictive voter ID laws. Remember, your voice matters, and by standing up against voter suppression, you can ensure it's heard. Join the Times of Society community and subscribe now to amplify voices and drive positive change together.